Cameron, maybe you can help us understand the relationship between StartX and Stanford. I have to say I've been here long enough that I remember the days when Stanford was allergic to the idea of having any sort of incubation or acceleration programs, basically saying, listen, Silicon Valley is one big incubator, why do we need something like that? So maybe you could tell us about how this came to be and what the relationship with Stanford is now.
Yeah, so I'll start with how this came to be, and I mentioned it briefly. So I built two companies when I was at Stanford, two completely different companies. One was a private equity company, and one was an advertising company. And I learned a lot about entrepreneurship, specifically through the MS&E program. I took E145, I went to all the ETL classes, and when I was building my company, I found that I needed to learn a lot of really practical things. And I kept kind of hitting my head against the wall, trying to learn it, and then I would go and talk to my friends. Or I'd go to a networking event and find some mentor. But it seemed really inefficient. I got this really solid foundational education, but after that, it didn't seem like there was much support. Even in Silicon Valley, I'd go talk to investors, and to be honest, Silicon Valley is a great place, and it's a very, let's say, meritocratic and honest place, but there's still people who will do shady things. And so when I was talking to other friends who have built companies, there was a lot of issues they saw in Silicon Valley. So what I did is I did what I learned in Steve Blank's class here, is I just got out of the building and started talking to customers. And after talking to hundreds, this theme emerged where after a couple years, they finally figured out how to be effective in Silicon Valley. And so the people who built $100 million companies or $50 million companies figured out, hey, if I have the right support system around myself, I'll be successful. And they wish they knew it earlier. And then people who failed would say, I wish I had known how to build the support system around myself. Because when you're in a large company, you can go to HR, you can go to legal, you can learn all these different things. So after talking to them, it was very clear that there was this big missing educational need. And there's this problem where if you could just structure the resources of Silicon Valley, they existed, in a certain way, the process for building your company out of the university could be 10 times more efficient. And so the idea with StartX wasn't to, let's say, create new entrepreneurs. It was to increase the speed of innovation and decrease the friction with people who they might be successful anyway, but if we could move the needle on people who weren't successful to be successful and then make the successful people even more successful, that adds to solving problems in the world. And so Stanford, the relationship with Stanford initially, and you can look back in this, people were wondering, why are these guys doing what they're doing? Is this an incubator in the classic sense? Are we going to waste students' time by supporting them if they shouldn't be supported, if they should be thrown out into the wild of Silicon Valley? And it was very clear from our research that it was something that was needed. And so, we pushed forward. We built something. We launched it to our customers. We iterated on it. And a couple years later, Stanford has said, hey, this is great. This provides a lot of value to our community. And so initially, we were legally separate from Stanford University as part of the student government. And then after a couple years, we spun out of the student government as a legally separate entity. We set a lot of relationships on campus. And then earlier this year, or late last year, Stanford was, after talking to President Hennessy and the CFO of Stanford, President Hennessy is the president of Stanford, for those of you who don't know, they decided that they want to financially support us to help us grow even further. So now they're giving us around a $1.2 million grant a year and to help in our operations. And then separately, we have a fund with them. And the fund is a non-discretionary fund that any company who goes through StartX, any participant, can pull 10% of their funding round from the fund. And so, I think like any startup, we consider StartX a startup, we had a kind of rocky start where people didn't really understand us, but now we've kind of broken through, which is great.